I wasn't invited to my daughter's wedding in London that I fully funded. She sent a text message saying, "This wedding's invitation has only been sent to people who matter to me. You can watch through Zoom." I smiled and did not text back. The next morning, she wouldn't stop calling back. What happened shocked everyone. I will tell you everything. First, let me quickly thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to Gerald Thompson from Florida. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's go deeper into the story. I always thought I'd walk my daughter down the aisle. That one image had lived in my head for years. Her white dress trailing behind, my hand trembling as I passed her off to someone worthy. That moment was never just a dream. It was a promise I made to myself when her mother passed. Ava was only 11 then, still holding my hand when we crossed the street, still crawling into bed with me during thunderstorms. I didn't know how to raise a girl on my own, but I knew I'd spend every last drop of my strength trying. And I did. I didn't date, didn't remarry. I poured myself into her. College. Paid in full. Study abroad in London. I picked up side jobs at 53 just to keep the money flowing. I was tired, yeah, but it felt like purpose. She was my purpose. When she got engaged to some finance guy from Surrey, I didn't protest. I hadn't met him, but Ava seemed happy, and that was enough for me. She said they wanted to keep the wedding small, intimate. London was their base now, so that's where it would be. I asked no questions. I only asked where to send the money, and I sent it. $43,000 by the end. Venue deposit. Florist. DJ. Dress fittings. Custom linen napkins, for God's sake. I tracked every invoice with the same precision I used when I built homes in my 20s. Everything squared, every corner sharp. She didn't say much. Just, "Thanks, Dad," through quick texts. The kind with no punctuation. Then came the text message that cracked the whole damn structure in half. It was a Tuesday morning. I was eating a slice of dry toast and checking my garden sprinkler's settings when my phone buzzed. "Hey, Dad. Just wanted to let you know that this wedding's invitation has only been sent to people who matter to me. You can watch through Zoom. I'll send the link soon." I didn't blink. Didn't throw the phone or curse at the sky. I just stared at the message for a full minute, toast halfway to my mouth. I smiled. Not out of joy or understanding, but the kind of smile that leaks out when your body's still catching up to betrayal. I put the phone down, finished chewing, and rinsed my plate. My hand didn't shake. My heart did, though, loud and low, like a war drum. I didn't text back. I think a younger version of me would have fought back, demanded answers, begged for inclusion, thrown the "after all I've done" speech her way. But 62 changes you. You've buried friends, lost a spouse, watched your hands wrinkle, and your pride age into something quieter. I'd lived enough to know, when someone tells you where you stand in their life, don't argue. Just adjust your footing. The next morning, my phone started ringing. Ava. Again. Then again. 23 calls by noon. Voicemails started stacking. I didn't listen. Not because I was being petty, but because I wasn't ready to hear whatever spin she was about to sell. I stepped outside to water my garden, each spray of the hose feeling like an act of resistance. Let her panic. Let her wonder. She'd made her declaration clear. Only people who mattered. I just happened to be the one paying for them. Around 3 p.m., my old buddy Joe dropped by. We were Navy men once, years back, and now we mostly drank bad coffee and argued about football. He saw my face and knew something was off. "You all right?" he asked, stepping into my garage. I shrugged. "Just read something that reminded me where I stand." "Want to talk about it?" "No," I said, "but I think I'm about to make some expensive phone calls." He didn't pry, just nodded and offered me a cold beer from the cooler in his truck. We sat on the porch, not speaking much. The sun was beginning to fall behind the hills, casting that kind of warm orange light that makes everything feel cinematic, even pain. My phone buzzed again. "Ava." I didn't move. Joe just sipped his beer. "You gonna pick up?" "No," I said. "She said I don't matter. I'm just agreeing with her now." He whistled low. "Damn, that's cold." "Yeah," I said. "But it's not winter yet." I spent that evening at my dining room table, going through every email thread I had with wedding vendors. I printed the contracts. My name was on every one. Some of them had cancellation fees. Fine. I could afford to lose the money. What I couldn't afford was to keep bleeding for someone who didn't see me. I picked up the phone, took a deep breath, and started dialing. By the time the sun rose the next day, my phone looked like a hotline. 34 missed calls from Ava. 11 voicemails. 7 text messages, each more desperate than the last. I sat at the kitchen table, nursing a mug of black coffee that had long gone cold, just watching the screen light up with her name. I didn't touch it. There was nothing she could say that would rewire what I already knew. When someone invites you to watch their wedding through a screen, after you've spent nearly your entire life building theirs brick by brick, you learn quickly where you land on their priority list. She said it plain. The invitation only went to those who mattered. I didn't need a follow-up. I needed to believe her. I got up, slid open the patio door, and stepped out into the crisp morning air. The grass was still wet from dew, the sky just starting to soften with light. I sat on the edge of the porch and stared out at the backyard. I'd planted every tree back there myself. I remembered Ava helping me once, her tiny hand struggling to hold the garden spade while she wore that ridiculous floppy sun hat. She was maybe 6. Asked me if trees got lonely when they weren't planted next to others. Only when people stopped coming to sit under them. I had said. She didn't understand it then. Hell, I didn't really either. But it felt true. The first voicemail was her crying. No words, just crying. The second one came 5 minutes later, more composed but frantic. Dad, can we please talk? Please just call me back. I don't want it to be like this. I paused before deleting it. Not out of cruelty, but because I knew that if I kept listening, I'd fold. And I couldn't. Not this time. This wasn't just about a wedding. This was about every ignored birthday call, every unanswered email, every quiet moment I'd spent wondering if my daughter had outgrown me. And now she had confirmed it, in writing, no less. Around 10, I finally picked up the phone, but not to call her. I started with the florist. The woman on the other end was polite until I explained who I was. Oh, she said, her voice dropping. You're Ava's father? I am, I said slowly. And the one who paid in full for the arrangements. She cleared her throat. Yes, of course. How can I help? I'd like to cancel the order. Silence. But the wedding is this weekend. I know, but I'm not attending. Apparently, I don't matter. She didn't respond for a second. Then she said, I'll need to speak with our manager. There's a cancellation policy. Take whatever you need, I said. The money's not the issue. It's the principle. That line must have hit something, because she fell silent again. I'll process the cancellation. Thank you, I said. Then I hung up. It was mechanical after that. The caterer, the linen vendor, the string quartet, the photographer, each one a small cut that bled a little less than the last. I don't zoom into my child's life. I show up, or I don't show at all. She didn't argue. By the time I finished, the silence in the house felt deafening. No calls were coming in anymore. No texts. Just the steady hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of wood settling in. That's when I saw it. A message from Mark, Ava's fiancé. I'd never spoken to him directly, not once in their entire engagement. But there it was. Can we talk, sir? I think there's been a huge misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. That word had become a weapon over the years. People used it to smooth over hurt they didn't want to own. I stared at it for a long time, then locked my phone without responding. If Ava wanted to patch things, it should have been her fingers on the screen, not her fiancé's. This wasn't about some petty miscommunication. This was about erasure. And I wasn't in the mood to be politely erased. Joe stopped by again around 4, holding 2 gas station sandwiches and a 6-pack. You look like hell, he said, handing me a turkey on wheat. Feel like it, I muttered, taking a bite. You really cancel everything? Everything. He let out a low whistle. That's going to be a mess. Good, I said. Let it be a mess. Maybe then she'll sit in it long enough to figure out what she broke. Joe didn't say much after that. He just opened a beer, slid one toward me, and we ate in silence. But I appreciated him. Not many people just sit with you in your grief without trying to fix it. Most want you to smile again so they can stop feeling uncomfortable. Joe knew better. That night, I finally caved and opened Ava's latest text. Please, Dad. I messed up. Don't ruin the wedding. We can talk after. I didn't reply. Instead, I turned my phone off, slid it into the drawer, and sat out on the porch with a blanket over my knees. The stars were bright that night, unbothered, distant. And for the first time in years, I let the hurt settle in fully. It sat on my chest like a stone, sharp and unmoving. But underneath it, I felt something else beginning to form. Not revenge, not bitterness, clarity. There's a particular kind of silence that settles in after the fight never comes. It's heavier than noise, more suffocating than shouting. That's what filled my house the next morning. Ava had stopped calling. The texts dried up. Even Mark's attempts to reach me fizzled into nothing. But silence didn't mean peace, it meant calculation. Somewhere in London, I knew they were scrambling. Maybe sitting around a wedding planner's desk, trying to untangle the sudden chaos. I imagined Ava pacing, red-faced, confused how everything could collapse so fast. And in that imagining, I felt no guilt, only a strange sense of calm. Because for the first time, I wasn't the one doing the chasing. I wasn't begging for scraps of acknowledgement from my own daughter. I was letting her feel the weight of what she'd chosen. That morning, I took a walk down the block. The sky was overcast, the way I liked it. There was a chill in the air that reminded me of the afternoons I used to spend building things with my hands. Decks, sheds, shelves for Ava's school trophies. I passed by the local bakery, where the owner, Marlene, was sweeping the sidewalk. She saw me and smiled. "You heading to London soon?" she asked. I shook my head. Plans changed. She frowned. "I thought your daughter was getting married this weekend?" "She is." Her broom stopped mid-sweep. "You not going?" "Wasn't invited," I said. I didn't explain further. Marlene's face shifted, but she said nothing. Just nodded once and went back to sweeping. That was enough. I didn't need sympathy. I just needed the truth to sit in the air without being dressed up in polite words. Back at home, I opened my laptop and started going through every digital receipt. Some of the vendors had already confirmed the cancellations. The rest were pending. I fired off follow-up emails, each one short and to the point. "Please confirm full cancellation of the contract. Refunds may be prorated as discussed." That was the beauty of being the payer. My name was on every dotted line. My signature had brought the wedding to life. It could also bury it. Around noon, the phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then picked up. "Hello. Mr. Hart." A British accent. Soft. Polite. "This is Penelope Withers from Wexley Gardens. I handle vendor coordination for your daughter's wedding." I leaned back in my chair. "All right. I received your cancellation notice for the venue. I just wanted to confirm. Are you certain about proceeding?" "I'm sure." There was a pause. "Your daughter seemed very upset when she called this morning." I imagine she was. "She mentioned there may have been a misunderstanding." I almost laughed. "No misunderstanding. Just clarity. She told me I didn't matter. Now she can fund the wedding with the people who do." Another pause. This one longer. Then, finally, "Understood. We'll process the cancellation." I hung up and stared at the ceiling. I thought I'd feel a rush of power, maybe some petty satisfaction. But all I felt was the ache in my chest, the same one I'd been nursing since that first text. I missed her even now. Not the woman she was at this moment, but the girl who used to run barefoot through my workshop, asking if she could help me measure wood. I missed being her hero. But that man, in her eyes, had died long ago. Around 3, I got a call from Leanne, Ava's childhood best friend. We hadn't spoken in years, but her name lit up my phone like a ghost from the past. "Mr. Hart," she said, cautious. "Leanne. Been a while." I heard what happened. Ava's been freaking out." I didn't say anything. "She's telling people you're sabotaging the wedding." "I canceled what I paid for," I said. "That's not sabotage. That's disengagement." Leanne sighed. She was wrong. What she did, it was cruel. "But she's your daughter." "Exactly," I said. "She's my daughter. And yet she chose a live stream over my presence." "She thought you'd make things uncomfortable," Leanne whispered. "She said you were too opinionated, that you'd judge the ceremony, maybe embarrass her in front of Mark's family." I felt something inside me curl. Not anger, not even hurt. Just the final crack in something that had already been crumbling. Did she ever stop to consider what it means to ask a man for $43,000 and then tell him he's a liability. She's not thinking straight, Leanne said. Everything's so chaotic right now. Chaos isn't a pass, I interrupted. It's a mirror. Leanne went quiet. Then, quietly, she said, for what it's worth, I would have invited you. I swallowed. Thanks, kid. That night, I opened the final voicemail. It was Ava's voice, shaking, angry. I can't believe you do this to me. You're ruining everything. I made a choice about who I wanted at my wedding, and now you're punishing me for it? This is supposed to be my day. You're acting like a child. Please, just stop this. We can fix it later. Just stop canceling things. Click. No apology. No ownership. Just entitlement. My chest tightened. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling fan spinning slowly overhead. She still didn't get it. To her, I was a checkbook with arms. An ATM with feelings. The moment those funds were threatened, that's when she decided I suddenly mattered. Not as a father. As a financier. I went to bed early that night. No TV. No books. Just darkness. But I didn't cry. I'd done that already. In private, the night her text came in. Now I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, the silence still draped over everything like a heavy coat. And for the first time, I realized that maybe this wasn't a punishment. Maybe this was a blessing. The end of an illusion. The moment I stopped pretending we were still a father and daughter in the traditional sense. She had made her guest list. All I'd done was read it. The voicemails stopped by Thursday afternoon. I figured someone finally got through to her and told her to quit wasting her breath. Or maybe she just ran out of things to say. Either way, the quiet was its own kind of relief. I hadn't slept that well in years, not because I wasn't hurt, but because I wasn't carrying it alone anymore. For once, she was the one wrestling with the weight of her decisions. And I was finally resting. No more mental math on wire transfers. No more pretending we were close just because I still called her sweetheart, out of habit. The truth had carved itself clean through us, and all I could do now was let the wound breathe. I spent the morning in the garage, fiddling with the old boat motor I'd been meaning to fix. It was rusted in all the wrong places and probably a lost cause, but the hands-on work helped. Kept my mind out of the past. Somewhere in the rhythm of bolts and grease, my phone buzzed again. A different number. London area code. I debated for a second, then answered. Hello. Mr. Hart. The woman said, voice crisp and clearly uncomfortable. This is Eleanor Wyndham. I'm Mark's mother. I wiped my hands on a towel and leaned against the workbench. Okay. I thought it was time we had a grown-up conversation, she said. I snorted. Is that what this is? She paused. Look, I understand you're upset, and frankly, I would be too. But Ava is under a great deal of stress, and what you've done. It's affecting a lot more people than just her. What I've done, I repeated, tasting the words. Yes, she said quickly. Whatever misunderstanding happened, it doesn't justify appending an entire wedding just days before. I cut her off. Eleanor, let me ask you something. If your son had paid for your entire wedding and you told him not to come, how would you feel? Silence. I pressed on. She said it herself. Only people who matter. That wasn't a misquote. That wasn't taken out of context. That was a sentence typed with intention. She was emotional. Eleanor tried. People say things they don't mean. No, I said. People say things they don't mean to hear back later. She sighed. She's your daughter. Surely you can find it in your heart to. I did. I said, calm but sharp. I found it in my heart to put her through school. I found it in my heart to bury her mother without letting it break her childhood. I found it in my heart to send $43,000 to another country so she could have the wedding of her dreams. And she found it in her heart to reduce me to a spectator. I'm just saying maybe this isn't the right time to. The right time was when she sent that message, I said. This is the consequence. Eleanor didn't respond after that. I heard her swallow. Then she muttered something about needing to speak with Mark and hung up. I stared at the phone for a while, half expecting it to ring again. It didn't. That evening, I grilled a steak and ate it alone on the back porch. The sky was bruised with pinks and purples, and the breeze carried that dry summer smell that always reminded me of baseball and mowed lawns. I poured a glass of whiskey and let it burn slow down my throat. It was the kind of evening that should have felt lonely, but it didn't. It felt earned. Then, sometime past 9, headlights swept across my driveway. I turned, frowning, and set my glass down. I wasn't expecting anyone. But when the doorbell rang and I looked through the peephole, my heart stopped. Ava. She stood on the porch in jeans and a black hoodie. No makeup, hair tied back. Her eyes were swollen, red from either crying or the plane ride, or both. I didn't open the door. I just stood there, one hand on the knob, the other clenched at my side. "Dad?" she said softly, pressing her hand against the door. "Please." I didn't speak. "I was stupid," she went on. "I was scared. I didn't want judgment. I didn't want to feel controlled. I thought if I kept it simple, I'd feel in charge." Still, I said nothing. "I panicked," she whispered. "But I didn't think you'd actually cancel everything. I didn't think you'd cut me out like this." I felt something break open inside me. Grief, anger, love. They all blurred into one. "You didn't think," I finally said. "You decided." Her breath hitched. "I'm sorry." I leaned closer to the door, speaking low. "You didn't just uninvite me from a wedding, Ava. You uninvited me from a part of your life I helped build. I don't care about the flowers or the napkins or the catered fish. I care that you reduced me to a screen. Like a stranger." "I know," she said, crying now. "I know. But I didn't open the door." "I need time," I said. "More than you gave me." She stayed a moment longer. Then, slowly, I heard her footsteps retreat, the rustle of gravel under her shoes, the sound of the car door opening. The engine started. The headlights reversed. I stood there in the foyer, every muscle in my body screaming to run after her. But I didn't. Because some lessons don't come from hugs or speeches. They come from locked doors. Saturday arrived with an eerie kind of quiet. No alarm clock, no suitcase by the door, no rushed airport ride. The sun rose just like any other day, golden light creeping across the floorboards of a house that felt too big now, too still. I sat at the edge of my bed, staring at the framed photo on my nightstand. Ava, 6 years old, in her Halloween princess costume, missing her 2 front teeth, standing on my boots because she couldn't reach the mirror. I'd kept that photo through every move, every season of life. Today, she was a bride, and I was nobody. I made myself a strong pot of coffee, the kind that punches you in the throat. I didn't want to think, and I especially didn't want to feel. But the ache in my chest had other plans. Somewhere across the Atlantic, guests were arriving at a wedding that I built with my bare hands. Well, my bank account, but it felt the same. Somewhere, they were sipping champagne, toasting to a future I wasn't invited to witness. And somewhere, my daughter was putting on a white dress, surrounded by the people who mattered. There was no Zoom link. That, somehow, was the cruelest twist. After all that righteous indignation about me being part of it remotely, they didn't even send the stream. Not that I would have watched, but the omission said everything. Even now, after tears and pleas and front porch sobbing, Ava had made her choice. She'd shut the door herself this time, and I didn't chase her. I didn't power up the laptop. I didn't ask for a link. I simply brewed my coffee, stepped into the garage, and started cleaning my fishing gear. I spent the next 3 hours scrubbing reels, untangling line, oiling hinges. My hands stayed busy even as my mind roamed. I thought about Ava's mother, how proud she would have been, and how angry. That woman didn't suffer fools, not even in her own family. I could hear her voice in my head, sharp and clear. She did what? Tell her she can have her damn flowers back then. God, I missed her. Not just for her strength, but for the balance she used to bring. Back when Ava still listened to both of us. Before time and distance turned her into a stranger who saw me as a burden. A little after noon, my neighbor Hank stopped by. Mid-60s, loud, opinionated, always wearing flip-flops no matter the weather. He peered into the garage and raised an eyebrow. "Thought you were in London this weekend," he said. I didn't look up from my reel. Change of plans. He waited. When I didn't elaborate, he finally asked, "Everything all right?" I stood slowly, wiped my hands, and faced him. "She uninvited me, Hank. Told me the guest list was for people who mattered." He blinked. "You're kidding." "Nope. After you paid for everything? All of it." He let out a low whistle and shook his head. "Jesus. What did you do?" I shrugged. I took her at her word. Hank didn't have anything to say after that. He just muttered something about heading back home and disappeared across the street. The silence settled again, thicker than before. At some point, I wandered back inside. Checked my phone. No new messages. No missed calls. Ava had gone through with it. Or at least I assumed she had. There was no stream, no update. Just the faint hum of my refrigerator and the tick of the old wall clock. I scrolled through Instagram. Yes, I had it, even if I barely used it. Her profile was private, of course, but I saw the new display photo. Her and Mark, standing under a tree in what looked like someone's backyard. Her dress was simple, the background unfamiliar. No tag venue, no fancy caption, and no comments allowed. I stared at it for a while, trying to summon something. Anger, sadness, regret. But all I felt was distance. Not the kind you measure in miles, but in meaning. It was as if I was looking at a stranger's wedding, not my daughter's. And maybe, in some ways, I was. I spent the evening on the back porch with a bottle of wine I'd been saving. I watched the sky dim, the first stars flicker into view. A breeze rustled the trees Ava and I planted together when she was 9. I could still hear her giggling, tugging at my sleeve, begging to plant the pink one near the mailbox. I raised my glass to that girl. Not the bride. Not the adult who pushed me aside. But the child who once thought I hung the moon. To her, I whispered. By nightfall, the street was quiet again. I sat there until the bottle was empty and the ache in my chest dulled to something manageable. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't broken, but because the tears had already dried. I'd grieved this wedding long before it ever started. What I mourned now was the relationship that died before either of us had the courage to bury it. And still, I didn't hate her. But I also didn't forgive her. A week passed before I heard from her again. The house had returned to its familiar rhythm. The creak of old floorboards, the morning groan of the coffee maker, the soft rumble of distant traffic through open windows. I kept busy, fixing the cracked grout in the bathroom, organizing my old tools, cleaning out the junk drawer I hadn't touched since Obama was president. It was a quiet life, and for once, I wasn't bitter about it. There's something strange about peace. It doesn't always come gently, but when it arrives, it brings with it the clarity you didn't know you needed. I'd been holding my breath around Ava for years, waiting for the warmth to return. But silence had shown me something I refused to see. Some chapters don't end with slamming doors. They end with stillness. Her message came on a Monday morning. I was wrong. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted you to know that I see it now. All of it. The way I hurt you. The way I made you feel like you were just a wallet with a last name. I thought I was taking control of my life, but all I did was push out the one person who never let me down. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I read it once. Then again. I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to punish her. Those days were over. But because I had nothing left to give that wouldn't cost me too much. Forgiveness isn't just a word. It's a transaction. And some debts, once called in, don't get renegotiated. That same afternoon, I drove out to the local community center. Every Thursday, they ran a program for kids without father figures. Mentoring, tutoring, sometimes just a quiet space for boys who had no one to teach them how to throw a ball or fix a door hinge. I'd signed up the week before. The director, a soft-spoken woman named Clara, gave me a list of names and a handshake that lingered. Most of these boys just want someone to show up, she said. You'd be surprised how far that alone goes. I nodded, gripping the paper. I knew that feeling. Hell, I'd lived it. That first session, I met Jameer, a 13-year-old who kept his hoodie up the whole time and barely made eye contact. I taught him how to sand down a piece of pine wood, showed him how to check for knots. He didn't say much. But when I looked over an hour later, his hoodie was down. That was enough. Over the next few weeks, I kept going back. Hammer by hammer, screw by screw, those boys gave me something Ava hadn't in years. Presence. They listened. They asked questions. They showed up. And for every small win, a straight cut, a painted birdhouse, I felt a little piece of myself stitched back together. One afternoon, Joe asked me if I'd heard anything else from Ava. She's texted a few times, I told him. I read them. Don't reply. You still angry? No, I said. Not angry. Just done. He leaned back on the porch swing, beer in hand. Think she really gets it now? Maybe, I shrugged. But that's her work to do. Mine was to stop pretending. It wasn't easy. Don't let me paint this like some clean break. I still checked her profile sometimes. I saw the honeymoon photos, smiling by a lake somewhere, hair in the wind, new rings glinting under golden light. She looked happy, and it didn't sting the way I thought it would, because that girl wasn't mine to hold on to anymore. She belonged to someone else now. Someone she chose to build her life with. My job had ended the moment she decided I wasn't part of her story. And that was okay, because I had started writing a new one. These days, my circle is smaller, but warmer. Joe, Clara, the boys at the center. Even Marlene from the bakery started sneaking me free muffins on Fridays. I fixed her back door as thanks. It's not the life I thought I'd have at 62, but it's the one I've got. And in its own quiet way, it's good. I still keep that Halloween photo on my nightstand. Ava as a little girl, dressed like royalty, standing on my shoes. I don't look at it with pain anymore. Just memory. Just love that still exists, even if it doesn't look the same. Some people believe forgiveness is the end of pain. I don't. I think it's the start of boundaries. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do, for them and for yourself, is to let the silence speak for you. If you've ever felt left out by someone you gave everything to, especially your own child, you're not alone. Sometimes the deepest heartbreak isn't loud. It's a quiet realization that you were never really seen. But your value isn't up for debate, and neither is your peace. Tell us in the comments. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved just to protect your own heart? We want to hear your story. And if this one resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because every week, we share real stories that remind us we're not alone in the hard choices we make. See you soon in the next story.